Okay, so I really do have a soft spot for the EP-133 because it was the first hardware sampler that I used on my channel, like ever, I think. And I was so inspired by it that it kind of reignited my passion for samplers like MPCs and other devices that I use. And that kind of set me on the journey that I've been on this whole year on this channel of making music with hardware and samplers and integrating guitar. So obviously it's an inspiring tool, and I really think it's cool. I love the way it sounds. I love the way it looks. But it had a few limitations that were kind of non-negotiable for me. Namely, you had to like hold down a pad physically with one hand if you wanted to sample. And as a guitar player or a piano player or something who wants to record your instrument into a groove box, that just doesn't really work. So I ended up selling it. I moved on, tried some other things. But then a little under a year ago, maybe, they came out with a new firmware for the EP-133 that fixed that issue and added some things I didn't even expect, like fixed length recording and sidechain compression and all this other cool stuff. So I ended up getting my hands on another one because I wanted to take a fresh look at it as a pretty compelling option for someone who's an instrumentalist and you might want to get your first groove box at like a really good price point. And yeah, I don't know, maybe see if this is for you. So let's go over to the desk and jump in and make some music. So here we are with the EP-133, and before I start, I have to shout out my wife, actually, who made these 3D printed knobs and this little fader. And if you look really closely, you can see a little cat face on here. I think that is awesome. Leave a comment if you think that's awesome because it would make her feel really good. Let's make some music. So I'm going to start with a drum groove, and I've always really loved finger drumming on this, actually. It's super responsive, and these keys are just so fun to press. So it's super cool for that purpose. I've got some one-shots here. Recording into the sequencer has always been super easy on this thing. Basically, just press record and then press play. It'll count you in, and it will record. I am quantizing to the nearest 16th note. I got no swing on. Let's just see what happens. Just kick and snare. We'll start with that. Okay, there's kick and snare. Another cool thing about the EP is that you can actually turn off quantization. So now I have free timing. So I can record some hi-hats in here and make them kind of wonky and off the grid and just kind of record how I want. So back up to the beginning, record, play. Okay, I think that was mostly good, except for the very first hit was a little late. But this has kind of like a step sequencer mode where you can just go through the steps and move things around. So let's go to this step right here, erase that hi-hat, and then go to this step and put it back. Now let's hear what that sounds like. All right, that's fine. Not perfect, but I guess that is kind of the point, right? Side note, I should mention, I am going out of the master compressor here. I really like this master compressor. I just love how it makes drums sound in particular. So let's record some guitar. So here's where this machine really lacked before because you just couldn't record with two hands. But they've implemented a feature that makes that easier. So let me grab my guitar and I'll show you how it works. All right, so I've got my guitar here. I'm plugged directly into the EP-133. HX Stomp is doing all my guitar tones. You can see that I'm metering here. So you can play through this thing no problem. If all you want to do is have drum grooves on this and jam along, that's fine. Totally works for that, right? But what I want to do is I want to sample this chord, this like C minor 9 chord. So what I do is I go to sample. Before you had to hold down physically the pad, but now what you can do is you can shift and press the pad. And now it's waiting for me to pass the threshold and it'll start recording on its own. Press record to stop, and there's my sample. Now go back to my main page. There's my sample. And I can really easily put it into a keys mode and kind of mess around with different pitches. So let's just stick to that C minor 9 up to the C sharp and record that into the sequencer. So let's back up to the beginning. We're going to quantize this and let's see what happens. Okay. Now the other thing I can do is I can send this guitar part to the effects afterwards. So if we go to fader here and then press effects, now my fader is sending this group B with my guitar sample to the effects, which is chorus. So if I turn that up, it's kind of a lot. And then let's turn the level down too. Okay, that sounds pretty good. And just as a side note here, you can actually send your input level to the effects as well. So you can see that I'm sending my guitar to that chorus, and I could jam out with these input effects as well if I wanted to. So I have drums and guitar, and here's where one of the kind of like unexpected things is that I didn't even really think they would add, and that is sidechain compression. So let's play our sequence. And then what we can do is go to output, scroll over, and you see sidechain. So you have two controls, length and shape. But first we want to choose what our input source for that ducking is going to be. If I hold group A, you can see that my kick is selected. That's exactly what I want. And then if you hold shift, you decide which groups are going to be affected by that sidechain, right? Does that make sense? Group A, my kick is triggering it. And if I hold shift, group B is affected by it. So check it out. If I turn these controls up, right? You can get really dramatic, obviously, if I pump these up. Yeah, that's kind of a lot. Let's keep it subtle. All right, that's cool. It's kind of obvious, but you know, we're playing with it. So sidechain compression, that is pretty nifty. And then the other thing that this introduced is fixed length recording, meaning I can grab my instrument and play a whole phrase over the top of my sequence and record it at like a perfect length. Let me grab the bass and I'll show you what I'm talking about there. All right, so now I've got my bass guitar plugged into the HX Stomp, running through the KO2. I can play over the top of my sequence just like I normally can with guitar. And I can also record a full bass part over the top. So if I press play on my sequence, then I go to sample, and I shift, press a pad, you can see that now it asks, how long do you want this to be, right? I'm gonna go for 2 bars. So when I start playing, it's gonna start recording, it's gonna record for 2 bars, and then it's gonna stop, giving me a perfect loop to lay on top of my sequence. 2, 3, 4. There it is, a perfect 2 bars, right? So now, there's my sequence. If I go to sound edit, I can change this to a 1 shot. And if I want to place it at the beginning of my sequence, I just go back to 1, press record, put it there. Let's turn it down a little bit. And if I want to add sidechain to this as well, I can go shift output, go back to sidechain, hold shift, and make it affect group C. So now my guitar and my bass are both being affected by that sidechain input, right? And then of course, if I have everything recorded, I can also grab my guitar and just play over the top of it. and send my guitar to the input effect, which I think is chorus. There were other features that firmware introduced, but those were the ones that kind of really made this a viable option for me again. So being able to use it and record my guitar parts, my bass parts, whether just as one shots or over the whole sequence, really changed how I interact with this machine, and I really like it. So again, if you're someone who like plays an instrument and you're looking for your first sampler, I think this is a great option. It's really simple and it's super fun, very inspiring. So anyways, thanks for sticking around. Make a lot of music this week. I will catch you on the next one. Cheers.